Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's town hall. My name is Miles Brady Davis, and I'm the Director of Communications at Equality, Illinois. Sorry I don't have my camera on. I was trying out a new mic, and of course, it did something weird, so I'm on my iPad, which the camera's broken. Before we get started tonight, I would just like to briefly go over the format and Zoom logistics for everyone. In a second, Tara Bell will kick off the evening with a welcome, followed by Mike Ziri giving you a brief legislative update. Then Tara will introduce Johnny Gray, who will moderate our panel discussion tonight. Following the panel discussion, we will open the floor to Q&A. For the sake of time, we will allow 1 to 3 questions. If you would like to submit a question, please write your question in the chat box. I will unmute you once your turn arises. Once you're finished asking your question, I will put you back on mute. Thank you, everyone, and I look forward to tonight's discussion. And just so everybody knows, we are recording tonight's town hall. Tara, the floor is all yours.
Good evening, everyone. How's my sound? Can everybody hear me? Thumbs up. Yay. My name is Tara Bell. I am the Community Relations Director with the Rainbow Cafe LGBTQ Center in Carbondale, Illinois. And I also facilitate SASI, which is our Social Action for Southern Illinois Committee. So I'm just going to give us a brief statement and kick things off tonight. So if you'll bear with me, I have several screens open and lots of tech going on. So good evening. Welcome to the Rainbow Cafe Social Action for Southern Illinois LGBTQ Town Hall, hosted in conjunction with Equality, Illinois. We have come together tonight to explore issues and legislation on a local, state, and national level, which affect the LGBTQ community here in Southern Illinois, express our concerns about such issues to our elected officials and other key community members in the region, and share in a more broad and mutual understanding of one another through education and dialogue. We have approximately 70 participants registered for this event to engage in this conversation. Our list of invited panelists originally included Senators Dave Fowler and Terry Bryant, no response. State Representatives Patrick Windhorst and Paul Jacobs declined, although each of these legislators did meet with us individually to discuss the REACH Act. State Representative Dave Severin, no response. Benton Mayor Fred Condritz, no response. Murfreesboro Mayor Will Stevens, who is unable to be here due to the scheduled birth of twins to his family tomorrow. Carbondale Mike Henry, who graciously spoke with me, asks that I relay the following to the community. This is Mike Henry. I am unable to be with you tonight, but as you know, the Carbondale City Council has passed resolutions stating that we are an open, welcoming, and inclusive city. All of that certainly applies to the LGBTQ community. I wish you the best with your meeting and look forward to receiving the recording. Thank you. We are pleased to have in attendance Mayor Guy Alongi of the city of Quoin and Mayor Mike Absher of the city of Marion. We are very appreciative to you both for taking the time to engage with your communities and give us this chance to share our thoughts and experiences with you. We are also extremely pleased to have with us tonight Illinois House Representative Lamont Robinson of District 5. In the absence of our local Southern Illinois electeds, you reassure us that we do have a voice in the state of Illinois, and we look forward to hearing your perspective and guidance on the issues we face in our region. We are also honored to host Jackson County Treasurer Liz Hunter this evening, who will weigh in and represent our elected officials from the Jackson County region. And finally, we welcome SIU's LGBTQ Resource Director, Vernon Cooper. SIU is an apex of Southern Illinois, providing jobs, hosting and housing students, and driving the economy in Carbondale and surrounding areas. So 4 years ago, I stood in front of our community at the Carbondale Civic Center, when none of our elected officials participated that night in our town hall. We banded our voices together that night in a chant, "We are here." Today we come together again, and although some of our elected officials are not here with us to hear our voices tonight, we are still here, and we do have the ears of local mayors, county officials, and statewide representation. Thank you all. Now, I would like to introduce our moderator for the evening, co-host of WDBX's community radio station show, Isn't It Queer?, the fabulous Johnny Gray. Take it away, Johnny.
Oh, lovely. Thank you so much. Everybody hear me okay? Good. Good. Thumbs up are great. That's great to hear you. Well, it is my pleasure to be here and to be asked to do this with my community. And I feel very grateful, thankful for the opportunity, and I'm looking forward to tonight. I want to put everybody at ease that our purpose here tonight is to have a voice, not to be confrontational, not to pursue a particular set of policies or agendas. What we do want to do is we want to indicate our willingness to work with our representatives, whether they be legislators or mayors or members of the community who take on active roles in organizing, and we are thankful for that. Some of us are here may have disappointments and concerns that are looking for an opportunity to express us. Some of us here have ideas and enthusiasm and want to be engaged in the process of making this state the best state possible, especially for LGBTQ people, but also for everybody. And many of us just want to know that we have a voice and are being heard, that we have a place that we can be heard, and that our representatives across all those various places are here to hear us, are willing to hear what we have to say as they go forth and do the hard work of legislative work and leadership. Well, tonight we've got, as Tara has worked so hard at and others have worked so hard at, quite a wonderful array of speakers and folks who are ready to take your questions. Some of our questions, of course, we start out, we prepped ahead of time. But first we want to meet the folks that are on the panel tonight. I would ask our panelists, if you would, to introduce yourself. I'll give you the order and we're going to kind of go down the list that Tara gave me. But I'd ask you if you would to just tell us a little bit about who you are, and don't forget, we like to know your pronouns and what you prefer to go by as you understand yourself. So don't forget that little moment there. I believe that's everything. Let me ask first if Representative Lamont Robinson is here and if he is able to, or if they are able to introduce themselves. Hearing none and seeing no one stepping up, they may be coming in later. So we'll hold off on that. Then let me jump ahead to Jackson County Treasurer Liz Hunter. Hi, Liz.
Hi, thank you all for having me tonight. I'm Liz Hunter and my pronouns are she, her. I have been Jackson County Treasurer since 2019 when I was appointed and then elected in 2020. I'm also one of the founding members of the Women United Network, and that was an organization founded really for the sole purpose of having the women's marches back when we had the 2016 election and then in the subsequent years. So I've been pretty involved in the community in that way. I've also been a lifelong ally of the LGBTQ community and very proud of that. It's something I hold near and dear to my heart, and I think is very important, and I'm happy to be here. Why am I here? I'm the treasurer of Jackson County, so I'm not a legislator. I don't set policy. Taxes is one of the things that's actually the same for everyone. We all get tax bills if we own property. But I heard that our legislators weren't coming and that they either declined or didn't respond at all. So a friend reached out and asked, hey, were you asked? And I said, well, no, but I would be really happy to fill in because I think it's important that we have a voice from Southern Illinois here talking about these things. I think it's a shame that our legislators were not inclined to show up. I don't think that they recognize the importance of these conversations. And I'm happy to be here to speak on behalf of some different people in Southern Illinois who lead in a different way. So thank you.
Thank you, Liz. And please understand that we've learned very quickly in this community that whether it's county clerks or treasurers, being seen and being recognized by all members of municipal government is really important and can be really harmful when we are not. So thank you for coming tonight so much. And we're grateful to have you here. Next up, Vern Cooper of the LGBTQ Resource Center at SIUC. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. I am Vern. I use he, him, his pronouns. Been at SIU Carbondale for coming up on 4 years now. I went on the job market across, a national job search as a transgender person shortly after the 2016 election, since Liz brought that up earlier, and have a lot of firsthand and secondary experiences through just living life as a transgender person, and then serving in the role that I have on campus, advocating for young adults, some of whom are encountering or negotiating with the civil rights that they do and don't have for the first time in their lives. And transgender people still do not have full civil rights, especially depending by what state you're in. And I'm from Eastern Kentucky. I've really felt a lot of kinship with Carbondale. I like Carbondale. Ever since I've come here, I've felt the presence of entities and bodies like you folks who will come together and we'll advocate and we'll listen to each other. I've seen a level of engagement in Carbondale that's really, I've not seen before at other universities I'm at or I've been at, especially comparable to the size of the town. You all just really impressed me.
Thank you, Vern. Thank you very much. Next up, Mayor Guy Alongi. Here.
Hello, how are you?
Thank you.
First of all, thank you for the invitation. I've served as mayor for 6 years here in Quoin. It's been challenging over the last year or so. I kind of look forward to tonight's meeting, and I look forward to having a better understanding of the LGBTQ community and in Southern Illinois, and some of the challenges ahead that you all face. I know there's a lot of challenges for the gay community, but I'm here to get a better understanding of that and to see how community leaders can help you. So that's why I'm here.
Thank you, Mayor Alongi. Thank you so much for being here and being ready to listen. We really appreciate that. Mayor Michael Absher.
Good evening. Excuse me. Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Good, because I'm using AirPods and I wasn't sure whether they would work. I have only been in office for a couple of months in April, and I've met with Tara once a few months back to her request to try to learn more about the legislation and issues that were sort of on the table at the time, and still admit I'm not fully versed on all those issues or that legislation. So I'm here, I guess, to continue that learning process. I had made mention, I know you guys, several of you had reached out and wished my mother a happy birthday because I wasn't sure whether I was going to be able to be here. I will tell you that I did visit her earlier in the afternoon so that I could be with you tonight, and promptly spilled the entire vase of water in the back floorboard of my car as I took off. So since then and now, I've been diligently cleaning out my car, but trying to do that in time to be here with you. But anyway, thank you for the invitation, and I'm just here to learn. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Absher, and I'm sorry you had that crisis today. I'm sure that's added just a little bit of extra stress to your day, but thank you for being here with us. I believe I heard that Representative Lamont is here. Lamont Robinson? Yes? or maybe not. Well, I know that Representative Robinson was excited and willing to kind of be here to talk with us. We think that he will be here. We're not gonna hold on there. We're gonna get going, but we'll fold him in and do the introductions as we're able to as we go along. Folks, here's how the questions process is going to work. We've actually generated or had from folks who registered ahead of time send us in the concerns and questions that they'd like to ask, and we'll start with those. I'm gonna give you those question or that question here as we move through them, and just to try and maybe help cut down a little bit on the awkward silent pause. I'm gonna try and preview before I give the question just one of you more or less chosen at random that I think would be an interesting person to sort of step into this question first. Of course, if you feel completely called out and whatnot, there's nothing wrong with going, I would like to pass that to someone else while I think about my response to that. And our first question here is really one that we want to know about you. That is, what is something that you've seen happen or implemented in your community that helped with the LGBTQ community? And I tell you what, let me go ahead and throw this one to Vern. Let me sort of to help Vern, who works in the SIU LGBTQ Resource Center and is maybe coming at this in a different way than an elected official, but still that'll give our elected officials a time to maybe think about what are they doing. So again, that question was, what's something that you've seen happen and or implemented in your community that you think helped with the LGBTQ community? And if, yeah, please, Vern.
My internet dropped and I got back just when you said, I'm going to ask Vern this question.
Okay.
So can you run that by me again?
Sure. What's something that you have seen happen and or implemented in your community that you think has helped the LGBTQ community? And if you want, you can certainly talk about things that are in process right now.
Yeah. One of the things that like the service I provide to contributing to inclusion and stuff for LGBTQ students is trainings. I do trainings for offices and organizations to sort of help them understand better how to be better allies. And so I either have a standard training I do, or I can craft a training for your office in particular. So I've been talking with Carbondale Police recently about the kinds of issues that actually.
Well, I think we lost you. No, Vern, I'm afraid that we've lost you. We'll let you finish that if your connection brings you back here. Let me ask if any of our other folks who are here kind of on the panel have an itch to kind of jump in here and talk about what you think you've done that sort of benefited the LGBTQ community as part of the broader community.
I'll jump in on that one. Something that I've noticed in our community here in Carbondale, and I think it reaches broader Southern Illinois, is the Pride Fest that we've had that's gotten bigger and bigger over the last few years. Of course, 2020 didn't happen, but prior to that, it was really big and really fun. And it was right in the middle of town and kind of, showing everybody that we're here. And I think that, makes the news. It really gives the LGBTQ community a place in our community and invites others to join in, whether it be people in the community or allies, but just really fun, positive event.
What'd I miss?
Oh, you cut out on us, so I shifted away from you. You were talking to. Did you have stuff you wanted to add to that? Thank you, by the way, Liz. I think that I agree with you about Pride Fest.
No, I'm sorry. I'm having trouble keeping up because it keeps dropping out. If it does it one more time, I'm calling back in on my phone because I just can't.
Thank you, Vern. I note, by the way, if our mayors don't want to jump in right now, I do note that Representative Lamont Robinson is here. Yay, welcome, Lamont. And we would welcome the opportunity to hear you both introduce yourself, tell us your pronouns. And our first question up that folks have been responding to is, what's something that you've seen or are currently working on that's helping the LGBT community in your community?
Well, good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity. I am sorry that I'm a little tardy to the party I was having some connection issues, but certainly glad to be here. My name is Lamont Robinson. I represent the 5th District in the Illinois General Assembly. My pronouns are he, him. And the district that I represent is probably one of the most diverse districts in the state. High net worth, middle class, low income. I represent the Gold Coast, which is per capita the highest wealth community in probably the state, and then the Loop. And then I also represent areas like Inglewood and Bronzeville, South Shore that have middle to low income families. I am also honored to be the first Black LGBTQ member of the General Assembly. Made history in about 2 years, if not almost 3 years. I have done a couple of things that I'm very honored to have put forth and looking certainly to do more. Number one, to make sure that PrEP is provided for our youth. We know that we have high numbers of HIV cases in the African American and the Latino community. I have legislation that passed and the governor signed that allows minors to be able to go and get PrEP and without parental consent. And so that's legislation I'm certainly proud of. I also have funding out there to put forth a LGBTQ, center on the south side of Chicago. Many of us have probably toured the center on Halsted, but many of our youth have to travel from the south and west sides to be able to go get services. And I thought it was important for us to be able to have the center on the south side of Chicago. And so I'm very proud of that. I hope that many of you will come and tour that facility. We're probably 3-4 years out from breaking ground. But those are just the two things that in my short time being in the General Assembly that I have done. And again, certainly looking forward to doing more. And so I'll step back for a moment and if there's other questions that you may have for me. But again, so happy to be a part of this Zoom this evening.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Lamont. Mayor Absher or Mayor Alongi, did you, did you want to weigh in on this particular question? Yeah.
I think, I think as a community, it would be nice to have more LGBTQ individuals come forward and want to serve on municipal boards. A lot of communities have park boards and finance boards, so forth and so on. And those individuals need to step forward and ask their elected officials, to be considered for those community boards.
Thank you, sir. Yes, that's a great initiative. Mayor Absher, I know that you're new to the office, but have you seen things in your community, or do you have plans? Anything on your plate right now that you're particularly proud of that you think is going to help community generally, and then LGBT community as part of that?
I cannot claim any specific initiatives or accomplishments in this regard, in part because the first year I was trying to learn the job. The second year, as Guy alluded to, I think we've all been consumed with navigating the pandemic. But that being said, I mean, one of the issues in Marion specifically, and this really is kind of a broader issue than LGBTQ, but Marion is traditionally a very conservative community, and that's fine. I mean, that people choose their communities and such, but there's been man, I want to be very careful. I do not want to disparage anybody that's been elected in my office prior to myself or anybody on the council. I don't mean any disparaging remarks. I'm just kind of talking broadly about the community itself. Sometimes there's whether it's real or not, there's a perception in conservative communities that they're closed-minded and that you can't approach certain people or whatever. It seems to kind of come along with the territory. I've not found that to be true, actually, that there's closed-minded individuals. I'm telling you that that's the perception. And so kind of piggybacking off of Mayor Alongi's comment, I would encourage people as far as Marion's community goes, that whether it's any set of issues or any community, they need to be more involved, whether that's an elected role or a volunteer role, and make themselves available and make their viewpoints available. So I just haven't found really that the community as a whole is necessarily closed off or closed-minded, but because of the perception and the history of it, maybe there's a lot of people that would otherwise choose to serve or approach certain people about things that they don't feel comfortable doing that. And so I guess the one thing I hope, I can't claim any specific things in the last couple of years, for example, to your question, I would hope that at least when people come to talk to me, that they find I'm open-minded enough to listen to somebody else's viewpoint, somebody else's ideas. And in many cases already in the last couple of years, I don't want to say that I've changed my mind. There's just been a lot of things that I just wasn't necessarily all that in tune with or aware of or educated on, that through those kinds of interactions, I did become more in tune with or educated on or aware of. So anyway, I just hope, I guess moving forward, that the community as a whole can be more available, more open for those kinds of discussions, whether it's this particular set of issues that you are discussing tonight or any other for that matter.
Thank you so much. And Mayor Absher, I would just remind you that in the work that you have done to try and prepare your city to deal with COVID and the pandemic, that has impacted all of us, and we are grateful for the leadership there. Thank you so much. I want to move on to our next question here, and I think there might be a visual here for this, and I just want to warn my representative, I don't have access to the visual and I'm not pushing buttons right now, so if somebody else wants to bring that up, that would be very helpful. Harassment, and let me just sort of forecast here that I would be very interested in hearing from either of our mayors for the first on this. So Mayor Absher, Mayor Alongi, if you would be willing to sort of weigh in, just sort of where you are on this, that would be a great place to get us started. And of course, you always have the right to pass the baton if you feel you need to. Harassment, abuse, and discrimination are just issues that individuals in the LGBT community often face, from our schools and our workplace, sometimes in our connections with the government, even down to our everyday life in our communities. We face harassment, sometimes macroaggressions, sometimes microaggressions, that will kind of be very disconfirming and make our lives not particularly safe or helpful or healthy. We have an image here recently, not from either of the communities that are represented here tonight, but still in Southern Illinois. And Miles, if you can pull that up, that would be helpful.
Yes, and before we do, I just would like to give a quick trigger warning that the image that we're about to show you has language on it that some might find offensive. I'm about to share my screen now.
Thank you, Miles. Here's an example. I guess one of our questions up front is, would you consider this a hate crime? And what actions are you willing to take in your respective roles to protect LGBTQIA plus people from abuse and discrimination in our communities? I guess, Mayor Alongi or Mayor Absher, I guess if we were asking you, we'd say, if this happened in your community, how would you respond to this?
I guess I'll go first here, Mike. I think probably everybody here probably finds that very offensive. And I think law enforcement should be for all the community, not just for a select few. I don't know whether this is a hate crime or not. Something like that could just be mischief. It could be singled out to one individual, but I mean, I think if something like that happened in our community, our law enforcement officers would handle this, for one segment of the community, like it would for everyone. So, I'm kind of lost for words of how to react to something like this. I mean, this doesn't only happen, I mean, this happens to all individuals across all sections of our community sometimes, whether it be young or old, elderly, gay, lesbian, whatever. So I just think that maybe, we treat it like we would treat it for everyone. What do you think, Mike?
Can't hear you, Mike.
About
There
now?
you go.
Okay.
Yes,
I'll get this technology eventually.
that's
I
okay.
promise.
You're doing great.
I too don't know, and I'm a little bit embarrassed to say I'm not sure I know what the definition of a hate crime and how this context of this. I have a question. So this is the car of the person that made the post. Is that the implication here, or that's what's being represented?
Yes, I believe so. I
Okay.
may be wrong about that, but I believe so.
Well, I can guarantee you this: to that person, this is definitely a hate crime, and so and that's important. And whether you start splitting hairs on the context of the statute or the law or whatever, but I got to tell you this story that something I'm actually have been dealing with real time, because I haven't had this. Hang on, I have a little bit of a technical problem. I have not had this kind of issue come up in Marion, but in the last, just prior to the presidential election, we had, and then one afterward, which really is kind of the same thing, and that I struggled to know how to deal with, and I just want to run you through that. So right before the election, and some of you may have seen this on WSIL actually, we had a person in town that put a flag or a sign. I think that particular one was a sign that said F Trump. And so we have an ordinance in Marion that prevents, or not, obviously it doesn't prevent it, that says you cannot have hateful speech, I guess, the wrong kinds of words, as far as what you and I, all of us, I think, would probably consider a cuss word, and that F word being one of them, and so forth and so on. And so we basically didn't go up and write a ticket or anything, knocked on the door and said, look, here's our ordinance. This is not acceptable. Please take it down. Well, what their person's reaction was to call WSIL. And what happened was, in that circumstance, is that person got an audience that was literally by orders of magnitude more powerful, and more powerful of a voice than, inadvertently. I mean, I guess I don't know what we should have done or not done in that case, but my point is then it turned into, now I've got legal representation, and this is my First Amendment right, and so forth and so on. And lo and behold, according to our city attorney, there is case law that had we pressed that, we probably would not have won. It would have been a very expensive thing for the city to try to prosecute, so to speak. And gosh knows it would have probably made it, by another order of magnitude, that much more powerful in the media. And so then after the election, we had just the opposite situation happen, where somebody flew. It actually got worse, though, because somebody was flying an F Biden flag on top and then a Confederate flag just under that. So, I mean, man, they were really going for just about every, as if the first flag wasn't offensive enough. So, again, not something that we could pursue in legal channels, because our attorney said we would basically lose, that there's actually case law out there. So the problem comes in all these, as far as whether it's acceptable in your community. We've said, it's on record, it's not acceptable in our community, and that there's penalties for that. But the reality is that what state's attorneys choose to prosecute, and then what the judges at each level of the judiciary choose to prosecute, and especially when you factor in case law, is a completely different thing. And so sometimes I don't know if Guy has had this kind of situation in Quoin or not, but there is this altruistic view of what should and should not happen, and then there's the legal realities of what we're faced with when it does happen. And so I haven't had this specific situation. Like I said, I don't know if this meets the definition of a hate crime. It's awful. And just the thing with both of those flags that I kept thinking of, is our kids are seeing this. It's one thing if you're just having some bar brawl with somebody and saying some slur or something and somebody can defend themselves, but every kid in these residential neighborhoods sees this stuff, and maybe there's good conversations that end up coming out of that. I don't know, but it sure doesn't feel like it. And my point is this: to everyone that sees those things, that's offended by it, it's hateful, if not a hate crime. At minimum, it's hateful. And I think that, especially given the legal constraints that I've become painfully aware of, even with our own ordinances and what we can and can't enforce, the one thing that mayors can do, legislators maybe cannot do, is it's a hard, long slog, is you've got to create an environment where hatefulness is just not a accepted thing within the community. And so, unfortunately, one of those two flags of the last one is still flying, but we did get them to take down one of them, and that was not through legal means, but because we just kept approaching them through different people going, this just isn't okay. This is not, you can say what you want. You can fly what flag you want, but this really isn't okay for the rest of us, and here's why. And some of those conversations turned out constructive. Some of them didn't turn out so constructive, to tell you the truth, but you still have to try. And so I think that's the role, frankly, that we may be legally limited to in many of these cases. And even if this was a clear, maybe if this particular picture had even something worse on it, it would still be up to a state's attorney, whether even a local police department charged somebody with a crime or not. It ultimately rests with that local state's attorney, which is, I'm disappointed that there aren't any state's attorneys on tonight, because I think that would have been an added value, frankly. But anyway, that's my thoughts on this. I'm sorry I don't have a legal opinion on it, but it maybe by telling those other two stories, I am telling you by example of some of the real life things, real time even, that people get away with. Another thing that comes to mind, by the way, this is not just Illinois, Williamson County, Marion. There is a whole park basically on private property down near Paducah with multiple Confederate flags flying, and that's causing enormous problems in that community. And there's even a fundraising campaign down there by that mayor in Paducah that's trying to kind of overcome some of that. But there's basically not much they can do about it. It's a free speech thing. So free speech kind of goes both ways. We say in the one hand we want it, but then when it's not what we want said, then it obviously we think there should be limits to it, and so it's a conundrum without question.
Thank you, Mayor Absher. I really appreciate the observations there about the way that you're not, the king. You don't have absolute power, and you are sort of constrained by bureaucracy, but also that you have a lot of other ways of trying to address these issues, and persistence and trying to build community there, I think matters. So thank you for that. I don't know if Representative Robinson or Vern or Liz wanna jump in here. Do you have observations about this question? Would you like to? We're talking particularly in this case about this, but more generally about harassment, abuse, and discrimination, and what's the role that our elected representatives and others have in trying to combat that.
Well, something we've done at SIU is we revised the student code of conduct so that it provides more explicitly protections for LGBTQ students against harassment. So, a lot of what we all just heard was how, hate crime and such is hard to really pin down, because, and it's not the hateful part that makes it hard to pin down, it's the kinds of crimes they are. Because I see this picture I see what's happened to this car right now, and you ask me whether it's a hate crime. I don't care. because there's nothing, who's going to get the hounds and go hunt down the person who did this? This is not the kind of crime that this person is going to be made to feel better because we're going to catch the hoodlum that did it. All I care about is the impact, and the person who's got to drive around with this on their car. And so, I have this privilege because of the role I have, but I'm going to approach this, at the personal level, like, support this person. How can I help them? Well, obviously they need to get this off this car. So, I think, in terms of support, I have a multi-pronged approach, and it's pretty much always find out what the student needs, make sure they know their rights, and then worry about, what kind of reports we can file and whatnot. Because when we have, and this is of course, specific to campus, but when there are cases of harassment or something like that, they're no easier to unequivocally say, yes, this is targeted harassment because the student is gay or whatever. It's never as easy as that, and that just can't stop you. And so, for instance, there was a student who was on internship with another student who was bullying him, and they were working at a community health center thing, and the other student was just making jokes about him being effeminate. In how am I going to prove in a court of law, or ever how you expect me to prove this, that that's targeted harassment because he's gay? Who even decides that? Who decides what targeted, harassment or homophobic harassment is? To me, I took it, I sort of empowered the student to tell his story, and we tried to take it, and we took it to the people who are over student code of conduct. And we said, this is what's happening, what it's experienced, and this is why, and what's going on here. And then, we have, I think, more latitude than simply having to go like, yes, it's a hate crime, or no, it's not a hate crime. If I had to, though, I would say, well, yeah, that's a crime, and it's very likely that this was because of this person's sexuality, and I'd be less interested in labeling it as something than forcing a dialogue about why it happened and what was the cause of it.
Thank you.
Hey, Jonathan, could I add one
please.
more comment
Please
that I thought whether or not it's a hate crime or not, there is a crime involved, as Vern just said, with that. And there is something that a municipality can do about, at least, and you see this all the time with state's attorneys, they will charge somebody with a lesser crime if they don't feel like the legal burden can be met for really what to the average person seems like it ought to be. And so you see that with murder cases, and they get charged with a manslaughter or something else, because state's attorneys go for what they can get a conviction on, not for necessarily, basically what can be proven. So what is, without question here, there's defacing of private property. And so what we've got to make sure, in my opinion, is that the police in that case of this example would have at least, at minimum, written the person a citation for that, and caused because I think the state's attorney, that's prima facie. They can see that someone's property was damaged, and maybe at minimum somebody should have to pay to restore that piece of property back to the state, before they defaced it. And so it's a sad fact in some cases with the law. And this is just my opinion over 2 years being immersed in this, and I'd be interested in Mayor Alongi's opinion on this. But there are things, even if a police officer or a state's attorney does not believe that rises to the level, that does not mean that should just be ignored. Does that make sense?
Yeah, Mike, on this type of crime, the state's attorney may not be willing to prosecute because it's so hard. to prove. But by the same token, if the city law enforcement people would write a ordinance violation to the people and go to city court, and they can get some type of a conviction at city court, then you have a civil matter to where the person that has been vandalized could possibly go back and sue that individual for the damages. You could, you got options, small claims court or whatever.
Thank
So,
you both. I really appreciate these responses. I want to, I don't mean to cut you off. We have a lot of things, and I think we're getting a little bit into the legal weeds, though I really appreciate that both of you bring into stark relief for us the number of people who have to coordinate and work together to try and get a response going here, and what it is that you can do in the municipality or in the city, and what you can't do. And so I really, your comments here are much appreciated. We want to, first of all, before I run ahead, let me make sure, Liz, I'm not sure if you've got specific things in the Treasury's office that you can kind of point to where you try to fight or deal with discrimination and harassment and so forth of LGBTQIA+. But I want to give you the opportunity to comment and weigh in.
In my office, customer service is number one, and everyone in my office treats everyone the same. And I'm very proud of that. It's something that we talk about often, and we're happy to serve everyone in our community. So.
Appreciate that, and it's always confirming to feel acknowledged as part of the community. So thank you for that very much. Getting a little bit more specific into our alphabet soup here, because it's really emerging lately. And let me just sort of offer that I'm going to throw this one, at least initially, to I think Mayor Absher of our folks here. Yes, I'll do that. And we'll just plan that ahead of time. And of course, if you want to toss it on to somebody else, you can. Specifically recently, but really historically, transgender people are too often the victims of violent crime, particularly transgender people of color. The events of the last year have disproportionately affected these people and other LGBTQIA+ individuals of color who already suffer from intense discrimination. Further, as if the abuse in the streets wasn't bad enough, there is a lot of legislation proposed at the national and state level, and challenges developed to the Equality Act, such as the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act. Can you offer us what are your views on transgender people and what you are doing in your respective roles of community to acknowledge, recognize, and protect transgender people?
Oh boy. Well, the non-politically correct answer is I don't know that we're doing anything about it. I'm not really sure at the city level, though, to be honest, what we do about it. Some of these issues are specific to school systems, which have their own leadership. And certainly in the case of our town, I don't have a role or specific, there's no hierarchy there that gives me a say in the school board policies as the question relates to schools. Maybe you guys can enlighten me on what kind of issues that do need to be addressed at a city level to address these questions. Because again, I'm more here to learn than I am to preach something. So I don't want to misrepresent that I'm doing something at all that I'm not. So maybe it's more about I need to learn about what I need to do.
Why don't I suggest Representative Robinson? I don't know if you have something specific to this, but I think I missed you on the last question too there. I think you went away on my screen for some reason. So I wondered if you had the question here is we're looking at a lot of discrimination against transgender people, either in the streets with high assault rates or in legislation lately coming out of states and even sometimes coming up on the floor of Congress. What is it that your views on transgender people, and what can we be doing in our respective roles and communities to protect them?
Jonathan, that's a great question. I recently met with the Chicago Police Department to talk about what for several lives that have been lost in our community from our trans brothers and sisters, and what are we doing? What resources are we putting forth to make sure this does not happen again? And so in Chicago, that's what I have done. Certainly I'm a state rep, but I certainly have the authority to meet with folks at the city level. And that again is to find out, again, what are we doing to look at the deaths that unfortunately have happened in the city of Chicago? What resources are we putting forth to investigate those deaths? And then also, how are we making sure that this does not happen again? So that's what I have done in my role. And then second to that is to work with folks like Equality Illinois and Mike Ziri, that I believe is here this evening, to look at the laws that we currently have, to make sure that they don't have any loopholes as it relates to hate crimes, as the mayors spoke about. I want to take a moment and give kudos to both mayors for being here, particularly my classmate, the mayor of Marion. We were we were in the Eggers Fellows together. So it's great to see him here this evening. But let me step back. Again, working with Equality Illinois, I think that myself and also the mayors that are on the line could look at our laws at the city level and the state level and make sure that they're strengthened. That's something that I've been doing and pushing my friends at Equality Illinois to make sure that we take a look at the state laws, but then also just being available to meet with organizations like Brave Space Alliance, a trans organization in the city of Chicago, to make sure that that if there are issues or concerns that they do have, that I'm certainly here. And then lastly, giving resources to organizations like Brave Space Alliance in the midst of COVID. I gave resources to that organization so that way that they could provide resources to our trans brothers and sisters that are really struggling during this COVID time. So those are things that I have done, but certainly like the mayor mentioned, that I'm certainly here to learn as well and figure out ways that I can also be more helpful.
Vern, I'm wondering if you have things to observe sort of coming out of an LGBTQ resource center, as we keep hearing the refrain of "I'm here to learn." I'm thinking an LGBTQ resource center and its efforts towards protecting our trans members of the community might be relevant here.
Yeah. So one of the things that I've set up at SIU is pretty much comprehensive care for LGBTQ students. Like they get their hormones from us. They get, like, I refer them if they need letters for surgery. We have them, what's it called, an MOU. And so, really, there's nothing I can't solve. I mean, the student health insurance covers their gender affirming surgeries. And if there's any students here listening, come and talk to me if you need any of these resources. I'll help you figure it out. My students are getting their surgeries for free. What my nightmare is I have to send them out to you all, and it's not as well coordinated. And so some things that I would love to be able to turn them loose to are doctors who won't turn them away when they learn that they're transgender, which is illegal, but they do it anyway. And, so for instance, the receptionist is often the barrier, and they will, well, here's what people have said to me. Oh, sorry, he doesn't do that. That's what they say. He doesn't do that, and then hangs up. And so a little help, a fairness ordinance would help with that, something where a city effort to actually make people aware of the fact that they provide these resources to trans people as well. And we're everywhere and we hide in plain sight. And Southern Illinois is sort of bursting at the seams with trans folks. And so, and I know that because a lot of them start out on my campus. And you blame me if you want to. I don't care. I'm kind of proud of it. But SIU is nationally ranked for recruitment of LGBTQ students. And so, and we did that on purpose. We went and got them, and they're taking jobs here. They're coming here, and so we had to get the resources for them. But there's still a big disconnect, and so so for instance, transgender men need gynecological exams. A lot of times I'm the test subject. I walked into Heartland Women's Resource or whatever, Women's Center, and said, hello, yes, miss, 1 pap smear, please. And so I test the waters in these ways. And so I know what it's like to be out there. And the thing, you know, I didn't get to vote. I didn't get to vote because to get a license in Illinois, you have to have a birth certificate and it has to match your legal name, and mine doesn't, because I'm from a state that won't allow you to change it. And so there's a kind of civil death that transgender people can encounter that doesn't, I mean, there are a lot of ways in which you give up elements of your citizenship in order to transition. And so I have great sympathy with people who don't know where to start for setting these things up, because a lot of it's patchwork. This is the same way we set it up so that people could even transition at all. You know, hormones the trans people use, they're not FDA approved for the use that, for the way we use them, and testosterone is a controlled substance. It's Schedule 3. So, you know, we're walking probable cause also. And, you know, although I said that to a student, and she said, aren't we all? And I said, yeah, to a degree. But I do understand that it's difficult to know where to start, but there are a lot of things that you can actually do to increase like the level of accessibility your place has for transgender people. And so that's why I like how people keep saying they're here to learn.
Yeah, likewise.
Jonathan, can I make a comment?
Sure. Who's that?
This is Lamont, and I just want to give Vern kudos. And Vern, look, I want to be a resource to you in the General Assembly. There are, let's see, Sam Yingling and myself and Kelly Cassidy. And then we also have a new senator, Mike Simmons. And so there's certainly the will there. And Vern, I just want to let you know that I look forward to working with you and Equality Illinois to make sure that some of these loopholes that are closed, and then also
Lamont, we seem to be losing you.
Doctors are not doing the right thing, maybe looking at, and unfortunately, we hate the penalty there. And so that's just something that I thank you.
Thank you, Lamont. I think we're losing you there. Liz, I think I see that you want to get in here.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that, you know, we are making some progress on trans issues in Illinois, because we have a pretty progressive state and we're all very lucky to live here. Like Vern said, you know, Carbondale is a great place for trans people. But I looked and today I found that there are more than 80 bills in legislatures across the country that are anti-trans. And I think it's really important to know what's going on in the rest of the country as well, and know that, you know, even though we're making some, you know, small progress, we're still going to be fighting the uphill battle in some of those other maybe more conservative states, maybe not even conservative states. They may just be, you know, states where the legislature leans a certain way. So just wanted to point that out, that, you know, this is a record year for that. We're seeing a lot of pushback on progress.
Thank you, Liz. And I just want to say it means so much to see people who are aware of this. A lot of times I think in community, we talk about this. It's not always clear to us that this is so clear to other folks who may not be part of the community. And we definitely see what's happening in other states. I keep hearing coming up here a lot of reference to our legislation, to difficulties with the law that we have, the need for new laws. How can we get new laws kind of going here? We kind of skipped something that we meant to do at the beginning, but boy, did it just organically come up in the best possible way. Mike Zeri, this is me giving you a heads up, and you just disappeared from my screen. Of course, that's the way our technology is working tonight. Oh no, there you are, Mike, gotcha. Mike, I wanted to take a little bit of a pause. We got a few more questions, and then we do want to see if we've got any kind of coming into miles ready to sort of have from the community as well. To sort of talk us through as briefly and quickly as possible, what are the sort of legislative agenda right now? What sort of are we aware of that's LGBTQ QIA plus community related that is happening and that Equality Illinois is sort of monitoring. Take it away, Mike, and don't forget to introduce who you are and tell us your pronoun.
Yeah, thanks, Johnny. Hello, everyone. Mike Ziri, Director of Public Policy at Equality Illinois. He, him, his. So awesome to see so many friends and so many friends like Representative Robinson. So great to see you part of this tonight. And thank you to the mayors. Thank you, Vern. Thank you, Treasurer Hunter, for all being part of this. It's really awesome. Yeah, it's a busy year for LGBTQ equality. A lot of great initiatives in Springfield, which I think really contrasts, Liz, with what you just talked about across the country and how Illinois, is the anchor of equality in the Midwest with our great laws and how we need to keep moving forward. We can't just rest on our laurels. We've got a lot more work to do. And you really want to give a shout out to Representative Robinson, the bill he mentioned earlier, the Youth Prep Access Bill, which he championed 2 years ago. Just a really important bill that helps young people get access to PrEP in circumstances where they may not have parental support, and just really important that they have access to that. So kudos to Representative Robinson for championing that law, and also he was a key vote for the inclusive curriculum law, the bill to require LGBTQ historical contributions to be included in public schools 2 years ago. But having said that, there's still more work to do. And we've got a couple great and exciting bills this year, some of which you'll hear about in a little bit. But top priority is a bill called the REACH Act. And the REACH Act would require in public schools age-appropriate, inclusive, comprehensive personal health and safety education. And that's something that's missing in many schools across Illinois, to the point that 30 states have some form of requirement for personal health and safety education, but not Illinois. And for Illinois to live up to her values of equality, equity, and justice, and inclusion in schools and making sure schools are affirming places, we need to get this bill passed. And I will talk about that in a second. Another big piece of legislation this year, and I know Representative Robinson is very familiar with this bill. It's the bill to decriminalize HIV in Illinois. A really significant piece of legislation. Illinois is one of about 32 states that criminalizes the transmission of HIV and criminalizes people living with HIV. And HIV is the only communicable disease treated criminally in Illinois. And if we ever want to get to zero, which is our whole program here in Illinois with Governor Pritzker, getting to zero new infections, we have to get a law like this off the books because it really impedes public health strategies. And I think there's gonna be a little more conversation about that later on. And then just two other bills I really wanna mention. One is a bill, I know Tara is very familiar with this one because she's heard about it in our community advisory group, but it's the bill for the gender inclusive multi-occupancy restrooms, which this law, House Bill 3195, would allow businesses to implement gender inclusive multi-occupancy restrooms if they want to better serve their customers. They can't do that right now, but we want to be able to let them do that to better serve their customers. And then another really important bill, and I think Vern, this goes to some of the points you were making about identity documents, really continuing to modernize our birth certificate law here in Illinois and removing the requirement that someone has to have a doctor's note in order to correct the gender marker on their birth certificate. It's House Bill 9, really excited by that bill and moving forward this year. And then just one last, I know I said there were two last bills, but one last bill real quick that I know Representative Robinson supports. I know he supports all of these, but it's a bill that went through Representative Cassidy's Restorative Justice Committee about 2 weeks ago, a really important bill about helping trans folks correct their name, to do name changes if they may have engaged with the criminal code in the past. There's a prohibition right now that someone who has a felony on their record can't change their name for 10 years after the disposition of their felony, and in some cases can never change their name. And so you could see how that could impact trans folks. And so Representative Cassidy and Representative Robinson are working on legislation to correct that law and to allow folks to change their name and to have those documents that show who they are and to be able to live authentically in the world. And that's a really important bill that, like I said, just passed out of House Restorative Justice Committee a few weeks ago. So I know I wasn't supposed to talk for too long, so I'm going to stop there. But it's just a long way of saying there's a lot going on. There's a lot of ways to engage. Tara knows how to get a hold of me. But there's a lot of great things happening in Springfield this year and a lot of ways to be involved. So Johnny, I'm going to throw it back to you.
Thank you so much. And thank you for that rundown, Mike. I know that was actually really amazingly fast given how much is on the docket right now. So thank you for that very much. We do want to take a moment to talk just a little bit about the REACH Act. And here I'm actually going to ask, I think we have another member of our community, Cal, if we can unmute Cal. We have a statement from Cal kind of about and explaining the REACH Act for us. Cal Vaughn?
Hello.
Hi.
My name is Cal Vine. My pronouns are he, him, his. I'm a sophomore here at the local Carbondale Community High School. And as an LGBTQ youth here in Southern Illinois, I know my schools could have done a lot better about teaching like LGBTQ health in my schools and and how to build personal safety with these kind of communities and stuff like that. And I had to go to a specialized class called OWL taught by the local community here who actually taught about these things like gender expression, gender identity, and gender identity. For me and my fellow youth, it hurts because we don't get to learn about ourselves and other people about us. And I feel like it's very important that we get to learn about the REACH Act and get it passed and all of that. I'm glad to support the REACH Act, as I said. And yes, that's about it.
Thank you so much, Cal. The question that we have here for our panelists is simply, do you support this bill? And how in your communities can you help educate the public about it, support it, and where appropriate, help implement it? I don't think that I've asked Lamont to go first. So Lamont, let me ask that of you. I think that you may be best prepared to sort of respond to this one, and then we'll throw it open to others as well.
Johnny, absolutely. And I think that all of us that are elected officials in this day and age, utilizing Facebook and Twitter really can get the word out, particularly the two mayors that are in downstate Illinois that want to get the word out to their community and maybe not have many outlets. I will say that social media to the two mayors, and one of them being a friend of mine, would be to please utilize Facebook and Twitter and get that word out, because that shows us, those of us that are in the LGBT community, that you support us. And then that's something that we can share and we can retweet. And so this legislation is certainly something I'm supportive of. And it's something that not only am I speaking about it on the House floor to my colleagues, but I also don't mind, and I will take my own advice and get the word out on social media. Thank you, Johnny, for the question.
Oh, thank you so much, Lamont. Others, who else on the panel?
I have a question for Lamont. It's sort of relative. I mean, it is relative to this, but we have a legislator who is answering, whether or not she's going to vote for the REACH Act. She's answering the question in a way saying that she doesn't support unfunded mandates for schools. Lamont, how would you suggest that we respond to that person when we are trying to help get this legislation passed and explain to our senator how important it is?
Oh, that's a great question. And one of the things that, and this is something that I struggle with, even having friends that are not in my party, and I'm talking about my Republican colleagues, is that sometimes we get caught up on that the state does not have resources. But I think that we have to go back to that the state is a safety net and for everyone. And so we have to make sure that we fund our neighborhood schools, our community colleges, our state colleges. And so I think a lot of times my friends on the other aisle get caught up into that rhetoric around that we are not funding certain school systems or education, but that's just not true. That at the state level, that is what we do. We have to make sure that we put forth a budget. We also have to make sure that we fund our school systems. And so I think that and not to be in a battle with this person is that unfortunately is not true. We have to be able to properly fund our school systems. And so I think that would be the conversation that I would have. And look, I think that might be something that you and I maybe can talk to separately. And that's why you have advocates like me, whether I'm in your area or not, to be able to maybe find out truthfully what their issue is and try to figure out to have a happy medium. And so certainly this legislation is so important to me that I would be willing to work with you and that person to get them to a point where they would be supportive. I think that's the best approach, because again, what they're saying is just not true.
Thank you. Very helpful.
Yeah. I wonder, we haven't heard from our mayors, Alongi and Absher, on this. I'm wondering if the REACH Act passes, is this headaches for you, or is this yay excitement? This is an opportunity and you embrace it in your communities.
I'll take that one, since Guy answered the other hard one first. So I think the answer was, do you support, or the first question was, do you support this bill? There are elements of the REACH Act that I can support wholeheartly. There's some that I don't. And so some of them, that's just an honest answer. And so I know there's an opt-out for parents, but that's going to be a problem, frankly, just in our community. And I perceive that that's going to be a problem in our community. I can't say that I know that one way or the other. I don't know that the general public even is very aware of all of this. And so really that's one of the issues that I see, is that regardless of how I feel or any specific person feels, that this really needs to be vetted out there better in the general public, so that they can let their legislators know how they feel. To the specific question, there's elements of it, specifically as it deals with bullying and some of those provisions that are written into that act. I can wholeheartedly support it. I can also tell you that there are many people, even though I have said that I don't think it's widely being talked about, there are people that are up in arms about it, that think it's too soon and too much in the sex education area to be teaching especially the younger children. And I think that's where the opt-out comes in, and that's why this has got to be vetted out a little bit better in the public, so that at least they understand it. The problem with social media, which we've all experienced, regardless of which side of anything you're on, much less party, is that things get consumed in tiny sound bites. And really, any bill or any effort has got to be read in context and understand what the intent of it is. And I think that's lacking right now. So I can split hairs and say different things that I think is a good idea or a bad idea and this kind of thing. But I think the bigger issue is that really the general public's just simply not aware, and it's not weighing in regardless of how they feel with it. So I don't know that it's going to cause us problems, to your question. I think the less education that there is about it inherently will cause problems because of this soundbite thing.
Yes, and you're absolutely right, Mayor Absher. There is definitely some misinformation, especially about the lower grades, about what's being offered. I see that Tara wanted to hop in here, and as organizer, she gets the right. So Tara.
Thank you so much. And, can everybody hear me? I'm unmuted, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. So Mike, I would love to come to your office next week or maybe the week after, whenever you have time, and go over some of the nuances of the bill and provide some additional education, and maybe even address the school board to talk with them about it so that we can get facts to your community that are clear and understandable that might help with some of this apprehension. Would you be willing to meet with me?
Well, you're always welcome to come talk to me, but you need to spend your resources, frankly, at the school board level, because that's where the focal point will be, and that's where the parents are going to come. They're not going to come to me. So
Okay.
and you're always welcome to, but and I don't want to say you're wasting your time, but if they're trying to pass, are they still trying to pass this bill by May 31st? Is Lamont still on here? Is that still the trajectory?
That is the plan, correct.
Okay,
Yes.
so your allocation of resources, frankly, Tara, needs to be towards the school board, because those school board members are the ones that are going to get the phone calls. And I can say that because I spent 8 years on that school board.
Right.
I know what that's like. And so, yes, you are more than welcome to come talk to me, but I'm not going to get the questions. I'm not going to have the opportunity to confirm or refute whatever those sound bites are. So it's up to you, but that's my advice.
I understand, and that is good advice. I appreciate that. I will take a look and see when the next school board meeting is and see if there's any way possible that I could possibly address them. If not, I can send information to them.
It's the third Tuesday of every month at 6, I believe it's at 6 p.m. And right now it's being held at the Marion High School auditorium, I believe. You have to check all that on the school website, but especially the meeting time. I'm not sure if they've changed that since I was on the board, but it is the third Tuesday of the month.
Okay.
Yeah, Mike, I think I can echo your sentiments. I think this is at the school board level. This is in their lane of traffic. Even though it's our community, it's their school. It's their bill that deals with their children, and I think their lane of traffic should be addressed. I think the resources could probably be better used if they go to the school boards instead of local municipalities.
And the other thing is those are televised, Tara. So, if you go up in the public comment section, I think they limit you on time, but I'm not 100% sure what that limit is. So you would need to be respective of that, of course. And it might be to your best interest just to give the superintendent a heads up that you're planning on coming and being there, just so that, I don't know, I always thought that was a courtesy when I was on that board and president, and just try to understand what the nature of the meeting is going to be. So
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And thank you for the heads up about the televised part. I'll be sure to put on my eyeliner.
Well, unfortunately, your back will be to the camera. I do not, for the life of me, understand why they. I guess they're trying to get the school board, and it's from way back. So you can wear your eyeliner, but you may have to turn around and give your thumbs up or something.
Nice and big, like we used to do in the '80s, so the back of my hair will look good. About that, we'll go back to high.
That would be well advised.
I have a question because I don't know. Please. I'm not very fully versed in the legislation and things like that. Anything outside the the Department of Education is, I kind of deprioritize it. But I am aware of the REACH Act, and what its scope is. I don't know. People keep saying children. I don't know how young this is going to go, but it will be high schoolers, right?
K through 12.
K through 12.
Yeah.
Could we take a temperature on whether this would increase or decrease the number of students I have to teach how to use a condom?
Hopefully decrease, I believe.
Grown-ups. I do sex education for grown-ups because they don't get it where they come from.
Sure.
And it's unsafe. They're not safe when they get here. So
Okay. I kind of in the interest of moving on, I think there's a lot of education we can probably do with the community about the REACH Act, and that's a little bit beyond our purview right here. But I do want to remind you that part of the idea behind the REACH Act is that all of the levels of sex education are age appropriate. I know one of the memes that's going around assumes that we're going to be teaching how to do exactly that, Vern, to kindergarten students. That is not it. And in fact, the younger age students are really being aged about consent, tested and trained about consent, and their ability to find an adult if they are ever in a threatening situation from other adults. I don't know who could think that that's a bad thing to teach a child to be able to protect themselves and get out of an abusive situation.
No, and by the time I get them, I can't fill all of those gaps. I can just hand them condoms and go have fun. That's what I mean by not safe.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, we do have a question from the community, and I want to kind of get it in here, although we're getting down to the last little bit here, and we have a few community members that want to ask. A community member asks, what about individuals who do not feel comfortable? How can you as mayors, particularly mayors here, but really as any representative, create a more welcoming environment where people do feel comfortable in your communities? This is specifically towards mayors, and I think Mayor Alongi, I mean, you might be our one to sort of kick us off this time. In fairness, since Mike took the last one from me.
Well, I go back to what I said earlier in the conversation. I think the municipality should reach out and try to fill some of those community board seats in our community. That would be more of an introduction, I think, than anything. I just think that everybody should work together, regardless of your gender or your beliefs. I mean, we're not here to judge individuals. There's someone else after life to judge our actions in our life as we go forward. But I think that we as communities, the only thing we could do is show acceptance and try to get people involved in our community. And I think if you get people involved in your community, I think that people will feel more comfortable.
Thank you.
I agree with everything that Mayor Alongi said. I read a great definition of culture the other day that said culture equals behavior plus actions, or beliefs plus actions. And so, the action part of that is what he's describing, and it's got to be, you want a more diverse community or a more diverse region or a more diverse state. That means everybody has to participate in different levels of government, whether that's a school board or a municipal board or city council or whatever. And, I don't know what fixes it, but I suspect, I'm not a member of the LGBT community, but I've been a member of what I felt was a minority group that I felt uncomfortable and didn't want to participate, didn't felt I was welcomed or belonged or whatever, and whatever the situation was. And so that's my perception. And so I didn't push myself either. I didn't go to that particular meeting or whatever. Might have wanted to, but I didn't because I didn't feel comfortable. That's the hard part. And so that's my encouragement is you've got to participate in those things, because you may find out your perceptions are reality. You may find out you're not welcomed. You also may find out that your perceptions were wrong and you're very much listened to and welcomed. And presumptions are dangerous things. I think everybody here can agree with that. And so I would hope as we mature as a society and we want to be more inclusive, but there has to be actions to that too, not just on our part, but people have got to be more involved in our communities. And I don't know how to put it, more test those waters a little bit more. Tara's having a connection there. So
yes. We see you, Tara. Come on in.
It's because I think that the meat in this particular question is, how can you make people feel more comfortable and welcome? You have to understand, and you did express, Mike, well, that you've been in this position before. You have to understand that LGBTQ individuals within these communities already don't feel safe, and they are afraid to necessarily step up, right, and put themselves into these positions. Thus, what I might suggest is, if folks remember in my opening statement from Mayor Mike Henry, that the Carbondale City Council has made a public statement of inclusivity, right? So perhaps one of the ways to make individuals feel more safe and welcome and accepted into these positions and into these spaces would be for the towns themselves, the city council, the mayor's office, what have you, to make a public statement that is accepting and inclusive and welcoming of all minorities, LGBTQ community, and other minorities included. So I think that that might be one good way to kind of break the ice, right? And to make your community understand that we are welcome when we can speak out. Because I'll be honest right now, it sounds a little bit like you're putting the onus back on LGBTQ people, right? And when we so often hear that we're too loud and we need to shut up and be quiet, to have the answer be, well, you need to step up, it sends mixed messages. So to have the foundation laid on your end first would help us. That would give us that step up. And I'm going to get back to what Johnny said. We have a lot of community members that want to speak. I'm going to actually bounce this over to some comments that are in our chat room, and specifically Carly Copley would like to speak and ask a quick question, or rather make a quick statement about the REACH Act. So Carly, if you're with us, please jump in here.
Hi, can everyone hear me? Two
Yes.
thumbs up if you can hear me. Okay, great. Hi, my name is Carly Copley. I'm a school board member. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm a proponent of the REACH Act, and I also work at the Women's Center as a prevention educator. So I'm a huge proponent of the REACH Act. It's actually going to strengthen and empower Erin's Law, which we already have, and it's just going to strengthen some of the weak spots that Erin's Law does not already cover. One of the things I keep hearing from elected officials is, oh, we don't, we never vote for bills that, that don't come already funded. Well, I want to address the issue of cost effectiveness. Throughout the state of Illinois, we have several centers like the Women's Center that are ICASA, the Illinois Coalition Against Sexual Assault Centers, that have free curriculum and prevention educators ready and available, as well as advocates and counselors to help you through this process, that are here to help our schools through this process. And together, locally, we have partnered with the Jackson County Health Department, and there's a committee called the Sexual Health Action Team, and we serve the lower 19 counties in the great state of Illinois. And what we've done is we've pooled our curriculums together. So when people think about cost effectiveness, how much is this going to cost? I think the new legislation about the REACH Act says that they're going to give schools at least until like 2022, 2023 to start implementing this act. And when it comes to curriculum, there is free and readily available curriculum at all of these ICASA centers and at your local health department. So I just wanted to cover both of those issues. And as a proponent of this issue and the things I see and hear in schools, it's very much needed. I think there is this issue and this misconception that we are going to teach sex ed to kindergartners. And what does that mean? It really means boundaries, respect, body rights, and no-go tell skills. What's wrong with telling a child that they have the power within themselves to protect their bodies? Nothing, not a thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carly. Folks, we are kind of winding down towards the end. We got two more important steps, I think, of our evening here. We might run just a tad over, but not very much over. I'm trying to be good about this, but we were plagued by some technological difficulties here at the outset that sort of slowed us down a little bit, and we want to be sure to cover our bases here. So I would ask of our panelists here, if we can, Representative Lamont, Treasurer Hunter, Vern of the LGBTQ Resource Center, Mayor Alongi, and Mayor Absher, if you have any closing thoughts that you'd like to give us about this event tonight and your participation in it and your commitments to LGBTQ community.
Johnny, if I may, I would
Yes.
like to give Carly kudos It's back to the treasurer's comments, how what the senator was stating is just not correct. So Carly, thank you so very much. And to the question earlier about what we can do, and I mentioned this a little bit earlier to the mayors, is that really just putting a statement out, and that could be on Facebook or social media, letting folks know that please reach out to us. We are open. We support all communities. It doesn't have to be large steps. We can do things, again, that are just small ways to get out to the community, to the African-American community or Latino community or the LGBT community, letting folks in our community know that we're elected officials, that we support them and we're here to work with them, and we do not tolerate hate. We have a zero tolerance of hate in our communities. Getting that information out, putting it in our city halls, whether that be on a flyer, putting it on social media, those things really allow folks in communities, particularly minority communities, to be able to know that we are welcomed. And so those are things that I think that we can do, all of us that are elected officials. And again, I'm very thankful for being on this panel, and look forward to being able to continue to work on these challenging efforts, challenging issues, excuse me, Johnny, that are affecting our state. So thank you very much.
I think I'm next on the list. So first, I want to say that I think it's no coincidence that Representative Robinson and Mayor Absher and myself were all in the Edgar Fellows class of 2019 and are all participating in this forum. It's a program that, talks about reaching across the aisle and discussing difficult issues. And I really commend Mayor Absher for being here to learn and talk about these issues. Further, there are 18 million people in the United States now who identify as LGBTQ. Those 18 million people have moms, and dads, and sisters and brothers and friends. And the reach in the LGBTQ community goes so far. It connects to, I would say, all of us. And when you start to think about people not having equality, that just builds barriers. It creates problems with mental health, which lead to criminal problems, which lead to higher cost for everything that we do. So, this discussion on legislation is so important to get us to a point where we're not realizing those costs. And I'm not just talking about money, I'm talking about cost to families and cost to our friendships. So I'm very thankful to have been here tonight, and just happy that everybody had a great conversation, and hopefully we all learned a little bit. And yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I think this has been a listening and a learning experience for me as a mayor, and it's eyes have been opened up on my side, to see what municipalities can do. But I think I'd like to go back and later ask the questions of what municipalities can do for you in order to make your lives safer and feel more connected with the communities that you live in.
Thank you, Mayor Alongi. I am guaranteeing if you make that an invitation, you will get a lot of people knocking at your door. Happy to tell you. So thank you very much for that. Mayor Absher, did you want to, on the way out the door?
Okay, first I want to know what this means that everybody's doing.
Oh, it's just another way of clapping, snapping, or fairy fingers in some circles,
So
since we can't hear ourselves.
See how much I'm learning?
Yeah,
I just want to tell you that, a little bit that I have had a couple of people in my life that I loved dearly that have been a part of this community. And as an adult, having lost those people in part frankly, we didn't call it all the same things that that we're calling these behaviors tonight, but it very much was the same things that I grew up with and that they lived. And so it has somebody very close in my immediate family that is a member of your community. And so that is basically enlarged my worldview, I guess, if you could put it a little bit. So that's why I get where you're coming from as far as not feeling safe, feeling bullied. I would use a different word, being tortured in some cases. And so I'm sensitive to that. I will admit to you that I'm still growing in this respect, and that I don't necessarily have the same complete worldview as everybody that's on this call, and that's okay. I hope that's okay anyway. But I very much appreciate being a part of the meeting tonight. I think I have learned many things, including that this means clapping. I'm going to have to do that after the call with somebody. I'm going to have to figure that one out. So, woo! But anyway, thanks a lot, and I appreciate it. And Lamont, great to see you. And Liz, great to see you. It's been a while, so maybe someday we'll get to go back up to Champaign for a alumni meeting and won't have to do those kinds of things remotely.
And Vern, just quickly on the way out the door, what you got to say as a closing remark?
I'm a resource. So I'm a problem solver. I'm a redneck and a hillbilly, and with some duct tape, we'll figure it out. And so my priority is, if you can identify the problem, I'll help you do it. And I know where I stand, which is right in the middle of the LGBTQ school to prison pipeline, because I know where they're going if they don't come here. There's a lot of reasons why my gay agenda is, I'll lay it right out there for you. And I need your help on it. So thanks for inviting me.
Thank you, Vern. Folks, here's the plan. We're almost done. One more step, but here's what we want to do. We've got a few people that we just want to give an opportunity from our community to say closing words and closing remarks. It's sort of an ethos on our part. As much as you are valued guests and members here to listen, we did want to let community have the exit line on the way out. And so we've got a few community members here. I'm sorry, Nick, if I'm going to ruin your name. Nick Smogligo of Carbondale Spring, Scott Fletcher of the Community Action Place, Claire Kilman, facilitator of transformation and board member of Conversion Therapy Dropout Network and local community organizer, and then Michael Coleman, SIU School of Political Science and community activist and organizer. I think we can take them in that order. I would just ask that our community members remember that we are sort of running over, and be both compassionate, kind, and perhaps a little brief. Thank you very much. Nick, you're up.
Thank you so much. It's Nick Smoligo, and yeah, I'm an organizer with the Carbondale Spring. I'm also running for City Council on April 6th, so I encourage everybody to vote on April 6th. What the Carbondale Spring is about, and what my campaign is about transforming Carbondale into a leader in terms of building a compassionate and ecological city. That, of course, involves leaning even further into Carbondale's kind of status as an oasis for the queer community within Southern Illinois, which it has been for a very long time, since there was a gay bar underneath ABC Liquors in the 70s. And I just want to thank you all so much for putting this event on. I want to thank the mayors for really joining in and being really open and honest with yourselves and with everybody here. It's a really beautiful event. So thank you very much.
Next up is Scott Fletcher. Is Scott here? Oh, Scott, I'm sorry, we might have lost you. I'm so sorry. Well, Claire Kilman. Thank you, Claire.
Hi, everybody. And thank you so much for moderating, Johnny. And, thanks to the people who put on this event, people who were able to facilitate it. Oh, Scott is here. Scott, do you want to go first?
Claire, no, go ahead, please.
Okay. All right. My commentary is basically just this event is one thing, and it's incredibly beautiful and wonderful that we were able to open up space for this conversation, but that queer liberation is an entirely separate and different thing. And I want to ask everyone in the audience, and even you know, the elected officials who are here with us, that do you feel queer liberation reflected in the officials present? Because if you don't know where you're at, you don't have an idea of where you're going, and where we want to go is queer liberation, how are you ever going to get there? And I also want to ask to the elected officials, do you know queer people? Do you break bread with them? Do you host them in your homes? Do you know them on a first name basis? I would challenge you to open your homes to the lives and experiences of queer folks and learn the processes by which we are going to be able to unshackle the chains that hold the LGBT community back in Southern Illinois. Illinois is a wonderful state to live in as a queer person, and I am so thankful every day that I wake up in a state that is able to host and reward someone like me for being here. But we have serious problems here in Southern Illinois, and it's going to take a deep, deep commitment and a reflection on our values as a society, as a region, to be able to move forward and move towards something like queer liberation.
Thank you, Claire. Yes, Scott, I see that you are here. I'm sorry I missed you earlier.
No, it's fine. I actually, as a secondary precaution, I always mute my phone when I'm using it so that I don't say something, you know, that I will regret later and will come back to haunt me. I just wanted to bring a little bit of focus and clarity to something that was mentioned earlier, Senate Bill 655, which is the repeal of, or actually the ending of criminal penalties for transmission of HIV. This Senate bill was introduced, I guess, in February, late in February of this year. And as a person living with HIV for now 22 years, I've seen a lot of changes over those 22 years. In 1989, our first criminalization bill was passed in Illinois. In 2012, they went in, made some great changes, not enough. And now we're hoping to decriminalize HIV. What this really doesn't do, and I don't want people to think that this takes away any personal responsibility of anyone, but actually it encourages that personal responsibility for protecting yourself. As someone who deals with HIV on a personal level, someone in a serodiscordant relationship, I know the importance. I've lived 20 of my 22 years with HIV as an undetectable individual. I cannot transmit the virus. And so this bill, if it moves forward, will actually repeal that statute that creates an offense, a criminal offense for the transmission of HIV, which actually, you know, not just being outdated, not just being discriminatory, but it is dangerous. It disproportionately impacts people of color. Because they are, as a marginalized community that is more impacted by HIV, you know, this is something that we want to make more equitable. For me, I just want to make sure that, you know, I'm available to anyone on the call to maybe bring some clarification or get you in touch with someone that can. We want to see this law change so that we can make sure that everyone's being personally responsible. And this is not based on these previous iterations of this bill that criminalize transmission of HIV actually are they need to be changed so that we are decriminalizing it and repealing those statutes, and then we are bringing up to date conforming changes to the Age Confidentiality Act, Sexually Transmissible Disease Act, as well as the Unified Code and Criminal Code of Illinois. I'm here. I don't want to take everybody's time up. I do apologize. Thank you so much for letting me speak to this issue.
Oh, absolutely, Scott. Thank you so much for bringing that back up to us. Last but not least, Michael Coleman.
Hello, everybody. I just wanted to personally say thank you all for participating in both the town hall program and the panel discussions regarding LGBTQ policies and legislation. Having transparency between elected officials and the LGBT community is one of the many first steps to saving queer lives. Thank you, Illinois Representative Lamont Robinson, Jackson County Treasurer Liz Hunter, LGBTQ Resource Director for SIUC, Vern Cooper, the Quoin Mayor Guy Alongi, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, and Marion Mayor Michael Absher. By you listening and being eager to learn about the LGBTQ safety, transgender rights and issues, the prominent urgent need to decriminalize HIV in Illinois, and finally implementing the REACH Act in the K-12 public schooling systems, you are in essence both validating and saving an LGBTQIA+ youth. In my line of work for policy advocation, I found that education is the key way to make important policy change, especially when you hold such powerful positions inside your own community. Hopefully, this is just the beginning to a symbiotic relationship for making the Southern Illinois region better for its LGBTQ and queer citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael Coleman. That was a really beautiful summing up there. I really appreciate that so much. It is, we are at that time. I am going to pass the baton, if I may, to Tara Bell to close us out for tonight. But as I do that, I want to thank everybody who showed up tonight. I cannot tell you, especially our mayors and elected officials, how important it is to us as community that you show up and have the conversation. I hope you hear our support and enthusiasm for all that you do, even as you also hear us, of course, nudging and wanting more. Tara, close us out.
Thank you. I don't think I have to add much to what Michael said. That was amazing, Michael. Thank you so much for that wonderful closing. I do want to express particular gratitude towards Cal Vine, the youth that spoke regarding the REACH Act. I get teary every time, you know, as a mama bear, when I hear the youth come with such emotion and passion about their situations. And I particularly want to thank Claire for putting everything in the frame of, you know, what are we actually doing? What are the real things, right, that we are actually doing? And I particularly want to thank Mike Ziri of Equality Illinois, Miles Brady Davis of Equality Illinois, and some of our members of the Southern Illinois Social Action Committee, SASI, particularly Billy Rogers, Carrie Vine Sinclair, and Carly Copley, as well as our fabulous moderator, Johnny Gray, tonight, for helping us put this program together, inviting people. And I want to thank all of our members of the press. Everyone will be receiving a recording, not only those of us who are here and who registered, but also the officials who did not make it into the meeting. I am particularly grateful to Lamont Robinson, Liz Hunter, Vern Cooper, and very particularly grateful to our two local mayors, Mike Absher and Guy Alongi. So thank you, everyone. And if anybody has anything left to ask, please email me, Tara at Rainbow Cafe. I'll throw it over here in the chat if you already don't know. You know, folks may know that I am very committed to contacting and speaking with our electeds. So if anyone has any more questions, please give them to me and I will make sure that they get into the right hands. Thank you, everyone. I'm done.
And
Johnny?
with that, we're done. And in comparison to most queer events, I think we ended on time.
Good night.
Night.